Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter. I like to do these twice a month on a Monday. I invite authors into my home. We talk about books, writing, life as an author, and whatever comes to mind. And this evening I have the wonderful, I'm going to say award-winning, because there are a few, award-winning author, Patricia Leavy. How are you this evening, my dear?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited to talk to you, but I have to just start this chat with the resume that you have is just quite impressive. I just want to mention a few things because it would take me quite a while to go through everything you've achieved, and just congratulations to everything. But you have written over 50 books. That is correct, fiction and nonfiction. You have received over 100 book awards, which is just outstanding. So congratulations to that. And you've also received numerous career awards, and I did note a few, including from the New England Sociological Association, the National Art Education Association, and a few others. And also you have had some awards named after you. Is that correct?
Yes, amazingly so.
That
Yes.
is just outstanding. Can you just give me a little insight on the awards that were named after you? I didn't write down what they were from. I mean, of course, it's for your work, but can you just give me a little background for those
And,
awards?
and thank you for your kind words. Well, I started out my career as an academic. So I'm a sociologist and I started out in academic nonfiction. And basically, the big thing I've written about is called arts-based research. And that's how researchers in any field, so psychology, medicine, sociology, education, can use the arts in their research to make their research more accessible to the public. And so I've written a lot of books about arts-based research, and in academia, that's what I'm known for. And so several years ago, I was giving a keynote address at an arts conference at SUNY-New Paltz University up in upstate New York, and they surprised me. They had created an award in my name for the arts and for social justice, and they gave me a plaque. They gave one to a student who was there who was amazing. And then a couple years ago in 2024, I was surprised again. I was in London at the London Arts-Based Research Centre. It's this amazing organization that hosts conferences all over the UK about the arts, writing, storytelling, creativity. And I was giving a keynote address at one of their conferences in London, and I was shocked and awed to learn that they had established the Patricia Leavy Award for Arts-Based Research, which they gave me the inaugural award. And they actually got some of my closest friends and colleagues to send in videos. So I was sitting there like crying, watching my friends say these very generous things about me. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was at Cambridge University in the UK, where they were giving out the award in my name to the first recipient, who was not me. And I wanted to be there for it. It was going to a colleague of mine who I just love, respect, and adore, named Sandra Faulkner. She's a poet. She's a beautiful writer. And so I got to be a part of giving her the award in my name. And so, I mean, it's very humbling. It's very humbling.
What an honor. Congratulations on all of your achievements.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now you are joining us from where again?
I live in Maine.
In Maine, and I'm in California, so you are 3 hours ahead of me. I feel like
it feels like 3 years.
I get a kick when I talk to somebody in Australia. I says, okay, so what's the news for tomorrow? Because you're a day ahead of us. You know, I get a kick out of saying that. But I do want to talk about your books, of course. That's why we're here. Which one do I pick? No, I'm just kidding. You have over 50 books. But your latest book is The Twinkle of Doubt? Is your latest book? Twinkle of Doubt.
It just came out a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations on that too. And that is fiction.
Yes.
That is fiction. And it is described as a celestial bodies romance. Is that correct? Now, describe to me, what does that mean?
Okay, so it all started with a book called Shooting Stars Above, which this is that book. And I've been an author, I mean, as you noted, for a long time. I mean, I've been publishing books for like 25 years. And almost 15 years ago, I started writing novels. So I've been writing fiction for a long time. And several years ago, I was sitting at my computer. I was supposed to be working on a novel that I was contracted to write. And I was just really stuck and just feeling uninspired. And so I was using all the tricks I've learned over the years to sort of plug through. But I decided I just needed like some fresh air and a change of scenery. So I stepped outside onto my balcony, looked up at the night sky. It was bursting with stars, as happens in Maine on clear nights. And all of a sudden, I swear to you, Tina, like a bolt, this idea for a novel came to me. A love story between two people who help each other heal from past trauma. And I've never had this experience before. I haven't had it since, so it might be a one-time thing. But I sat down and I put aside what I was supposed to be writing, and I started furiously writing. I wrote for 10 days straight. I mean, I barely slept. I did not talk to anyone, including my husband. I barely ate. Like, yeah, he thought I was a full-on freak at that point. I was like, you don't understand. Like, I'm immersed. I don't even hear what you're saying. I wrote for 10 days, and in 10 days, I wrote the entire draft of a novel that became Shooting Stars Above. Like I said, I've never had this experience before. I doubt I will ever have it again. It was truly magical, and it was my first romance novel. So while I had written other novels, yeah, I had written like women's fiction, mostly what some people call chick lit. I had written adventure fiction, but I had never written romance, which is kind of crazy because it's the thing I've always loved the most my entire life. Maybe part of me was like scared to do it, I think subconsciously, but this book just came to me in this burst. And I actually think I tried to write it when I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, I had this incredible English teacher. Her name was Miss Mercer. I was in 5th grade, and I wanted to write a novel. And she actually exempt me from some of the projects that year so that I could try and write a novel. And I never finished it. I mean, I was 10 years old, but I did get pretty far. And I don't remember the details, but I remember it was a love story between two sort of wounded souls who help each other heal. And I think Shooting Stars Above was that story. And that's why it came to me so quickly. You know, in my 40s, once I had developed the tools to actually translate it. So I wrote Shooting Stars Above, the first draft in 10 days. Day 11, I lay in my bed just crying and crying my eyes out because I love the characters so much. And I felt so depressed that this 10-day experience of magic was over.
Right.
And then on day 12, I started writing what became the second book, Twinkle of Doubt. And at that point, I realized it was a series. And I will tell you, there are actually 6 books written so far. And we're going to release one every March. So book 2 is out right now, but I know what all 6 books are. So we called the series Celestial Bodies Romance because each one has this sort of celestial theme that in the book is actually a metaphor for something else. So there's like a reveal towards the end of each book of what the title means. But after the first 2, I figured I'm going to go with the celestial theme. So the third book, which is coming out next March, is called Constellations of Love. And it goes on from there.
Okay, so when you wrote the first book, Shooting Above the Stars, you had no idea it's going to be a series. You just had this idea for a book. You're going to write this book. I've been there, by the way. I know how it is. My one romance ended up being 8 books, so I know exactly how you
get it.
And I miss those characters. I spent 3 years of my life with those characters, and now, you know, I'm on to something else. But I still think of them. But when you say it's a series, and so far there's 6 books written, congratulations. Are all the characters from book 1 following through the series, or is each book a new set of characters?
They're all the same characters, and each book takes place a year after the previous one.
Okay.
So you end up following the characters. The first book unfolds over a year, so you end up following them for basically 7 years over the 6 books. And it's all the same characters, but new characters are also introduced. So like supporting characters are introduced. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to write it, because after I wrote the first book, and you know exactly how it is because you wrote a series like that too, I wanted to spend more time with the characters, but I also knew more about them. Like I knew about their friends that hadn't been introduced. I knew about like an old girlfriend who hadn't been introduced. Like I had all these other people in my mind, but they had no place in the first story. So it's taken me 6 stories basically
to get all those characters into
to get them all out, and to really, like, each book, it has an ending. You can read each one as a standalone. They each work on their own, but there is an arc to the whole thing. So if you read the whole thing, of course, you see how the characters grow and develop, partly because of their relationships.
Know them. I mean, by the time I finished my series, they were like my neighbors. I knew everything about them. And my next question is going to be, when you sat down to write this book, did you plot it or did you just pants through it?
The first one, I just wrote it, and I wrote the entire thing out of order too. I could see the different scenes. So I actually wrote the last chapter first and the first chapter last. And in my computer to this day, like there's no chapter numbers because I didn't even know how many chapters there were. I just knew everything that happened. So I have like, you know, cake scene or bar scene or those kinds of things.
Like a jigsaw puzzle.
And I stitched it together in the end. And for the second one, I saw the whole plot again, and I knew what it was going to be, but I wrote it the same way. And I have written all 6 of them pretty much the same way, out of order, where I do know what's going to happen. Like the plot has come to me in my mind's eye. I can see it like a movie unfolding. But of course, you know what it's like as an author. You don't know every little detail. Like, you know the big things. But then when you're writing, you get surprised. And those are the best moments. Like somebody says something or does something you don't expect, and you go off in a different direction. And so I always make room for all of those possibilities.
Yeah, I totally let my characters lead the way. If I try and shift, it just doesn't sound right. It's like I just went off course on the story. And a character might do something that I don't like, but it's them. I'm not gonna tell them.
I don't censor that. I try to explain that to people all the time because, you know, people who aren't authors don't necessarily understand. They think like you're controlling it, like you're some kind of God. It's not like that at all. To me, they exist. They're their own beings. They're their own entities. And I'm just translating it.
Yeah, I'm just sending the message through my keyboard, the story through my keyboard. And a few chapters in, or probably a couple of books later, okay, now I know why you did what you did, but you didn't want to tell me back then.
Exactly.
It all comes together as you keep writing. But it's like, do I really want to write this? But it's like, okay, it's your story, not mine. I'm just here with my fingers. That's it. So I totally relate. Not to give anything away, you did say a little bit about, I think it was the second book, A Celestial's Body. No, The Twinkle of Doubt.
Twinkle of Doubt's the second one.
Okay. Can you give us a little, just a little insight on the first book, on how we get introduced to this series without giving too much away? And then I'm going to grab some questions from our wonderful readers.
Absolutely. So Shooting Stars Above is the first book, and Tess and Jack, it's the love story between Tess Lee, who's a novelist, and she's experienced intense trauma in her childhood. She was abused. She has no relationships with anyone from her childhood family. Jack is a federal agent, Jack Miller. He works in counterterrorism. So he's worked in this very sort of violent, ugly world. And they're 2 very kind people who try to give to others, but they've basically had no personal happiness for themselves. And they meet on the first page of Shooting Stars Above. So I'm not giving anything away. They meet in a bar where they both have other plans and are sort of stood up. And they just start talking at the bar, and they have this intense connection right away. And it's very real. I mean, you know, not everybody's a fan of instant love or what readers call instant love, but their connection is deep because they see in the other person scars, they see invisible wounds, and they understand what the other person has been carrying. So they have this immediate connection. They go home together that night, and they fall in love very, very quickly. So you know that right away. And then it's how their relationship develops. And then a trauma from the past is reintroduced. And so what you really see is, what does that do to them individually? What does it do to them as a couple? And so the book is really about the healing power of love, and the power of love to help us heal our invisible wounds. And so each book in the series sort of explores love in a different topic. So Shooting Stars Above is about love and healing. And Twinkle of Doubt is about love and doubt. So it's about that audio in people's heads saying, we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're not lovable, they don't really love us, that kind of thing. The third book, Constellations of Love, which comes out next spring, that's about love and intimacy. And what does it really mean to be close to another person? And so each one sort of looks at a different aspect of love. So I look at the whole series. It is Tess and Jack's love story, but I also look at it as like this big exploration and celebration of all the different dimensions of love, some of which are messy. I mean, it's not just, love isn't just good things. There's also pain, and there's also grief and, challenges. So it looks at all of that, but ultimately, it's a romance series. So each book has what to me is a happy ending, and the series as a whole, I think, will be very satisfying for readers who want to believe that even, those of us who have been scarred and have been hurt in different ways, that there are possibilities for love and joy and friendship.
I love the messages that the book. And how old are the characters, the main characters in the book?
When you start, Tess she's in her 30s. I want to say she's 38 in the first book. I want to say she's 38, but the first book I wrote a few years ago at this point.
I hear you on that one.
And I think she's 38. I have so many characters. I think he's 38, and he's 42. He's a few years older than her.
30s and 40s. Okay.
So yeah, so it's it's not young love between like 20-year-olds. These are people who have been through things in life, have a sense of who they are, but they haven't found somebody to share their lives with yet, and that's something they both want.
I like that. And then when you say it's a romance, is it a clean romance, or is there some steam in there? Or
very little steam. Like, I mean, there are a few love scenes in each of the books, but they're PG-13, I would say. I have some books that are spicier, but I look at it as like a sweet romance.
There you go. But we've got to show a little bit of chemistry between the characters, so the readers feel it, right? All right, I'm going to take a few questions from our readers who's joining us. Okay, Lori Chasco is here. She would like to know, is there a significance to a March release?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for joining us tonight. Well, I have a contract with my fiction publisher that I'm working with right now and that I've been working with for years. We're releasing 2 books a year. So I'm releasing 1 book in the Celestial Bodies romances, and then 1 different like standalone novel. So 2 novels with them a year. And so basically we just decided to like spread them out as evenly as we could. So we picked March for the Celestial Bodies romances and September for the other novels, just so they'd be spaced out like every 6 months. So there's no real rhyme or reason beyond that. But I will say, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And that is something that I am passionate and care about. And so my hope was always that the Celestial Bodies romances would come out in time for events around April. So that's why I decided to do those books in the spring and my other novels in the fall, so that there would be that possibility. I mean, I have a lot of connections on college campuses. I was a professor for many years. I still speak at universities. I hold book events at universities. And so there's a lot of programming for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so I wanted these books to be available for that, basically.
Okay. Now, you said you've written 6 of these books in this series already, coming out in March. How many books other than this series do you release every year? You've written 60 books.
So it's different every year. Like, so it really is. Last year, it was 5 books. That was unusual, though. It's usually not that many. One of those books was an edited, like an anthology, a nonfiction book that we had been working on for 3 years with 40 contributors. So the fact that it happened to come out last year was somewhat of a coincidence, and that's not going to be repeated next year. So this past year it was 5 books. That's not normal, and it will not be repeated, I hope. I mean, it was actually pretty insane. I don't recommend it. So I think most years it's going to be 3 or 4 books.
That's
I'm
good.
committed. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, I'm committed on paper to 2 with my fiction publisher, and I have a couple of books I'm committed to with my nonfiction publisher. But I do have other books. Like I have books that nobody knows about, Tina. Like I have books that I've written. I have my own little publishing imprint too on the side where I publish some of my books and also some other authors as well. And so I have some secrets. So I'm thinking this year it will be 3 or 4 books. That's all I can say.
Okay. Wow. Well, I'm impressed with your diligence and to work. I mean, that is just incredible. Oh, sorry. What happened there? Let me see. Chris, who is this? Oh, on YouTube, Kathy. She would like to know, as a child, did you dream of writing, or did you just decide to let the stories come out of you? And have you always known you would be a writer?
Thank you so much for joining us and for your question. My childhood dream was absolutely to be a writer, but I did not pursue it. I didn't tell anyone about it. I didn't pursue it. I was an extremely shy kid. If you would have told me as a child that I would even be having a conversation on YouTube with you right now, my childhood self, that would be inconceivable to me.
Really?
Inconceivable. I was the shyest kid you could ever meet. When you look at like family photos from when I was a kid, I'm usually standing behind my parents, like out of it. When I was a little kid, I was often very, very embarrassed in school because I'd be too afraid to even raise my hand to ask to go to the bathroom. Wow. So I'd have accidents because that's what happens when you're, 4 or 5 years old if you don't ask to go. I was extremely, extremely shy. And then on top of that, I was bullied very, very badly when I was in elementary school for many, many years. I mean, just like full on tortured on a daily basis. It was horrific. And I don't really know what it's like for kids these days. I hope it's better. But at that time, it seemed like, at least where I went to school, nobody did anything. I was not the only one. I had a very good friend who also suffered enormously. But it was basically like torture. So the combination of growing up just naturally shy, and then on top of that, being bullied on a daily basis, made me feel very protective of myself. And I felt that if you go into a career in the arts, you are basically asking for rejection and critique and all the things that I wanted to have less of in my life, not more. And I was desperately trying to not have that stuff. So I wanted to be a writer. It's the only thing I ever remember. I wanted it my entire life. Since before I was old enough to write, I would recite stories and an adult would type them. And I would bind them with old scraps of wallpaper and like rubber cement, literally, and staples. I have one that my mother saved in a Ziploc storage bag. I was 6 years old when I made it. I couldn't even write. So I wanted to do this my whole life, but I was just absolutely could not conceive of going after a life in the arts. So I didn't. So I took a different path and I ended up studying sociology in college. And then in graduate school, I became a professor. And of course, what happens when you become a professor is that you need to publish. So you need to write. So I did end up writing and I did end up publishing. It was nonfiction. It was research, it was nonfiction, it was academic textbooks, it was those sorts of things. And what happened was my personality changed over that period of time. I became much more comfortable with things like public speaking. I also became much more comfortable putting myself out there. I had plenty of rejection and critique when I was starting out in my career. My first book, I sent it to like 100 publishers. They all rejected it. I could have wallpapered my apartment with the rejection letters. So I mean, I had all the things that everybody else has who wants to do this. Right. And so you get better at it. And then at some point you also just get older and you realize that this is your life. It's not a dress rehearsal. This is your shot. This is the thing I always wanted to do. And so in like about, 2009, 2010, I started writing my first novel. And the only person I told about it was the guy who at the time was my boyfriend. He is now my husband. He's my husband. He's my husband because he read the first 20 pages and said, you should write a novel. So I was like, I'm going to marry this man. And I did. So I still started off sort of tentatively. And then I was afraid to publish it because at that point, I actually had a successful career in nonfiction. Right. You know, I had received recognition. People knew my work. And so I knew that, oh gosh, like what have I done? Like any fiction I put out now is going to have a bigger spotlight on it than it would have had I just done this 15 years ago. So you kind of can't buy yourself out of rejection and critique and all of that. You just have to forge ahead. But to answer the question, my childhood dream was absolutely to be a writer. And had I been braver, I would have pursued it earlier. I wouldn't say I regret it though, because I love the path I ended up taking, and I did and experienced and learned a lot of things I would not have otherwise. So I sort of think it was the right path for me, but it definitely was not a direct line between my childhood dream and my career.
And it makes sense with, you know, with your history of the school and the bullying that you took a detour, which is what you did, but you ended up on the right track. So
you always end up where you're meant to be. That's the thing. Like you can't fake yourself out. So like whatever it is you're meant to be doing, somehow you'll end up there.
You will end up there. That's very true. Okay, we have a question from Renee. She would like to know, have you ever had an aha moment and had to go back and change what you had already written?
Yes, I actually had this happen today. So thank you for your very timely question. I have had this happen a few times. Right now I'm working on a romance novel. I'm basically always working on a romance novel. And I have about a third of it written, and I do have an outline. I have created an outline for this one. And I've had to put it aside for a few weeks because I've just had other things I had to do, and I was traveling and so on and so forth. And when I came back to it, I was really like having trouble. I was really having trouble getting back into it. And I thought the problem was that I had put it aside, but I realized today that I had to go back and change something because the idea I had originally doesn't work in practice. Like this part of the idea doesn't work. So I had to go back today and change it. So today was actually like a really hard writing day. It was not one of those great writing days where like you're in flow and it's amazing. It was one of those like fixing a problem and trying 5 different things. And then I think I have it. Like I think I have it now, but I won't really know until I go back to writing, you know, tomorrow and the next day. But yeah, I've had those moments. Like I've had moments where I've had aha moments where I don't have to like fix something per se, but I get another idea on top of the idea I have, or like there should be another scene, or there should be this, or there should be that. And sometimes those are the best parts. I mean, like I had one novel. It's the third novel. I wrote a trilogy. So it's a romance trilogy. One of my favorite things I've ever done. The first book I wrote during the lockdown, during the pandemic. So it was just like, it was my escape from depression, basically, that book. And it ended up becoming a trilogy. But when I wrote that first book, I thought I had a draft of the whole book. I loved it. I went back and read it. And then I like couldn't sleep at night, couldn't sleep the next night, couldn't sleep the next night. And I realized that there are like 2 chapters missing. And mostly at the time, I was just thinking it's not even like important information. I'm thinking it's just like the reader needs to be able to breathe. Like I'm blowing through things too fast. We need these 2 chapters so the reader can just like breathe. So I add these 2 chapters. I know the book is better. I think it's just one standalone book. The pandemic ends, and all of a sudden I realize, oh my God, this is a trilogy. And those 2 chapters, Tina, okay, and Renee, those 2 chapters that I went back and added were the answer to the trilogy. So the trilogy would not be possible without those 2 chapters. So sometimes like there's all kinds of aha moments that happen. And, you know, like you, I always go with it.
Yeah. And a lot of times the aha moments come when you're not at your desk or your laptop, you're doing something else, but you are constantly thinking about your book, even though you might be
Inspiration does not oblige our schedules. Inspiration does not care what else we're doing. It does not care who else we're with. It's super inconvenient. You have to have relationships with people who are willing to put up with it, like that. You're like, all of a sudden you're not really listening to what they're saying because you just had this great idea and you don't want to lose it.
And we might not be writing all the time, but we're constantly thinking about it. And that's all part of the process of writing a book. You don't have to be physically writing it. Our heads are turning. Mine is. I know yours is. It has to be.
100%. The creation process is always happening. And a lot of times I think it's the time that we're not sitting and writing. We could be cooking dinner, we could be folding laundry, whatever, but your mind is turning, and that is where like this stuff happens. Like that's where you figure things out, basically. That's
one
how
thing,
better.
One thing I can't do is set up my laptop and wait for something to come. I just can't do that. If nothing's turning, I'm gone. And then when I'm doing something else, here it comes, back to the laptop.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just have to get yourself in a different environment, or like not staring at a screen, but just like thinking about it while you're doing something else, and like just letting it unfold, letting it unfold, letting it unfold. And then all of a sudden, there you have it.
There you have it. Okay, we're going to take one more question. And it's from Renee again. She has one more question for you. Which of your characters was the hardest to develop?
Thank you for your question. Which was the hardest to develop? So, okay, I have like two answers. So one answer is I have this series. I was just talking about it, okay? This is the first book in that series. It's called The Location Shoot. There are 3 books: The Location Shoot, After the Red Carpet, and Cinematic Destinies. And it's a very sweet, joyful, romantic series. It's like my ultimate feel-good series. Even like if I want to reread something just to feel good, or just mentally revisit characters, that's who I revisit. So it starts off on a film location in Sweden, and there's a group that's making a film about the meaning of life. And the director invites his friend Ella Sinclair, she's a beautiful like bohemian philosopher, to come and hang out in Sweden for the summer. While they're making this film. So she goes basically to just like freeload, off of him and like hang out. And of course, the star of the movie, this gorgeous movie star, Finn, like is immediately enchanted with Ella, and it becomes their love story. And it's a story about love and art and also friendship, because the whole group becomes good friends. Okay, so to answer the question about characters, the filmmaker who brings them all together, his name is Jean Mercier. And he's a very controversial, like dystopian, dark sort of filmmaker. He has a reputation for being a womanizer, and like his like personal life is like a train wreck. And he makes these very dark films. The media does not always like him, but I love this character. Like I deeply and profoundly love him. He is not a perfect person. Like by no means is he a perfect person. But he was actually the first character I thought of when I wrote that book. I didn't think of Ella and Finn first. I thought of him as this creator bringing people together. And so he appears in all 3 books. And in the third and final book, Cinematic Destinies, he's still a supporting character, but he has a big part because I wanted to tell his story too. And he was tricky because he is someone who, he's a complicated person. He's not always easy to like. He's done some things that are not okay. And so it's tricky to write that kind of a character in a way where like the character is likable and sympathetic, but you don't necessarily like everything they've done.
Right.
I mean, he's not violent. He's never assaulted anyone. It's not like that. But, he has a reputation for a reason. So that was really tricky to write because I want readers to see and experience the good in him, right, but I don't want to minimize, he's not a perfect person. So he was a tricky character to write. And then another tricky character to write was Tess Lee. So the star of these books, she was tricky to write partly just because like I love her so much. She's my superhero. So like to me, she is a superhero. She is an aspirational character. I admire her. So of all my characters in all my books, she is the person that I admire. So she really is like my superhero. Um, and that's tricky because she's a person. She's not a superhero. And in the book, she has to be a person and not a superhero. And so I wanted to try and get that balance right, where I want her to be aspirational for readers too. I want them to hopefully like her and admire her, because I think there's a lot to admire.
Mhm.
But on the same level, she's a flawed human being. There are things she's not good at. She's a kind person, so she never hurts others, but she hurts herself. And so she's not always kind to herself. And so that was all tricky to sort of
But
try to
that's what makes them real. If we
yeah,
have these perfect characters that do nothing wrong, they're cardboard. No one, I mean, we all have flaws. We all have them.
absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's tricky when you really admire someone to try and get that right. And also it's like, it's very easy, I think, to write or to read a character. Like if they are unkind to other people, it's just very easy to see that. Like you can see point A, B, and C. You can see what they're doing. You can see the flaw. But I wanted to write a character who she's always kind to other people, but she's not kind to herself. And so that becomes a little bit trickier because some of it's interior. It's the voice in her head. And so it's a different thing. It's not all like externalized the same way someone who's just like a jerk to someone, that's externalized. But when you are good to others, but you are not good to yourself, there are just different ways you have to go about showing that. And so that was all. I mean, it was a wonderful challenge. And I will say, like, in some ways now, I mean, she's my easiest character to write. I could write her for the rest of my life if I wanted to. I think I could write books about her for however many days I have left on this earth. But, I spent some time trying to grapple with all of that.
Establish her and develop her. Interesting.
Yes.
Great answer, by the way. I
Thank
love that
you.
answer. And I want to ask real quick, do you find you put some of your characteristics into your characters?
Yes, but I also find they're very different from me. So, like, there's always something in a character I can relate to. Like in Tessa's case, she's a writer, so that's the obvious thing I
There
can
you
relate
go.
to. She's had trauma in her life. I've had trauma in my childhood and in my life. So we have different experiences of those things, but I can relate to those feelings. But then there are things about us we're completely different. Like she's an adventure junkie. She would get on a motorcycle, or she would jump out of a helicopter or airplane, or like I don't even get on a step ladder. I'm so afraid of heights. And like I'm like, forget about it. So we're very different in some ways and very similar, in others. So there's always something like that. Even with the characters who are not the protagonists, like there's always something in them I can relate to, but then sometimes they're very different for me. And that's fun too, because I will never be someone who jumps out of an airplane. So it's like great fun to me to be able to write about somebody who might do that. It's like exploring something mentally I shall never do in real life.
But it's fun to write about. I ride a motorcycle, by the way.
Good for you.
All right, we are going to take a break because you are going to read to us.
I would love to.
So I'm going to hand it over to you, and you give us a little intro on what you're reading, and I will be quiet. It's all yours.
Okay, so this is from Twinkle of Doubt. Okay, so I'm reading chapter 6. If I can find it, which I will, I marked it. Okay, but I want to tell you just a little bit about what's going on. So Tess and Jack were invited to a big gala hosted by the President of the United States. Tess is a very famous author. She's like the most successful author in the world. People know her. So they are invited to this big gala. And she doesn't want to go, but she doesn't tell Jack why she doesn't want to go. And he doesn't understand why she doesn't want to go. So he's like, well, come, it'll be fun. Like, we'll dance, we'll have a great time. So she agrees to go to this gala. On the way there, in the car on the way there, she says, will you please do something for me and don't ask why? He says yes. And she says, when we get home, like when we leave this thing, let's not talk. Let's just not talk. Let's just be us and go home. and BS, let's not talk about it. So he says, okay. So then they go to this gala. They have a wonderful time. You know, everybody's very impressed with Tess. She becomes friends with the female president of the United States, which that was great fun to write. And then this is the chapter when they go home, which I think will tell you a lot about these characters. You know what? I printed it out so it's bigger, so it'll be easier for me to read. So that's what I'm going to do, because it's going to be easier because it's dark in my office. Tess leaned against Jack in the limo, and he absentmindedly massaged her fingers, not a word spoken. When they got home, Jack followed Tess to the bedroom, taking off his jacket and tie on the way. She sat down at her vanity, unfastened her necklace, and slipped off her heels. Jack took off his cummerbund, unbuttoned his shirt, and kicked off his shoes. Tess stood up and turned her back to him. He unzipped her gown and helped her step out of it. She turned to face him. In a faint voice, she said, "Jack, if you..." He grabbed her, held the back of her head, and swept her into a frenzied kiss. She unzipped his pants and pulled them down. He picked her up and she swung her legs around his waist. He carried her over to the bed, laid her down, and they made love passionately. Afterward, they lay looking at each other, kissing, as Tess ran her fingers along the scars on his body. "Tess, I love you so much." "I love you too." "You were spectacular tonight. I was in awe. Do you have any idea how proud I am of you?" he said. She looked down. He wrapped his arms around her. "I'm afraid you think you can't be all that you are and still be with me. I can handle it. I don't want you to give up anything." "I know. Or is it something else? I saw the look in your eyes when Abdul spoke." She just looked at him. He brushed his lips lightly against her. "Jack..." He tipped her chin up to look in her eyes. "Do you remember that day in Hawaii, in the outdoor shower when I took you from behind?" "Yes, it was incredible." "Do you remember what I whispered to you?" he asked. She nodded. "I said, 'Don't let me hurt you.' Jack, you could never hurt me." "Not on purpose, but I needed to know that you would tell me if it was too much, that you can tell me anything. Otherwise, I never could have been with you like that, so intensely. Tess, there's such deep trust between us. You can tell me anything. I want to know what's going on in your mind. I know you're not ready to talk about whatever it is that's bothering you, but I'm here when you are. Someday, I hope you'll choose to tell me how you feel and what you need in the moment. I promise then that we'll be as close as two people can be." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm closer to you than I've ever been to anyone. I know, and that's how I feel about you, which is why I hope that someday you'll know in your heart that it's okay to tell me what you need. You never ask for anything for yourself, but you can and you should." He wiped a tear away, kissed the top of her head, and pressed his body into hers. "Let's fall asleep just like this." The next morning when Tess woke up, Jack's side of the bed was empty. She brushed her teeth and wandered into the kitchen. "Hey, sweetheart, I was just making some coffee," he said, spooning grounds into the filter. "Jack," she said softly. He turned toward her. "When I was growing up, I felt like I was buried alive. I couldn't breathe. Writing allowed me to take in gasps of air. It kept me from suffocating." He put the spoon down and looked at her tenderly, giving her his full attention. "I was barely 22 when I became well known. Fame threatened to turn writing into something else. I had to struggle to keep it for myself, my only means of air, just that one part of my life. Everything else I gave away willingly. I only kept that one thing for myself. When you're famous, nobody sees you for who you are. It makes it hard to breathe. When I met you, I felt like you saw me entirely and I saw you. No secrets, no masks. It was like oxygen. After surviving on gasps for so long, I was suddenly flooded with air. Jack, how we see each other, what we have, it's everything to me. It's literally the air I breathe. You, writing, and our friends are what's real to me, what keeps me above ground. Last night, the way people saw me and what they wanted from me, it's not that you can't handle it. It's that I don't want it. But more than anything, I don't want you to see me through their eyes. And I feel guilty because I know that being Tess Lee is a privilege I should use for others. But I just want something for myself. I just want to be. I just want to breathe." Without a word, he walked over, cupped her face, and kissed her. He gently placed her head on his chest, wrapped his arms around her, and held her for a long moment before whispering, "Thank you." "I love you," she said. Tess, I love you with my whole heart forever, exactly as you are. You don't have to do anything, just be.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed that.
Thank
That
you.
was chapter 6.
Chapter
I
6 from
love how you go into the character's head and describe to the reader exactly what she was thinking and what her wishes are or needs are. Very
Thank
good.
you.
And
Thank you.
now Tess and Jack, they are in all other books of the series.
They are the stars of all the books, and Tess's best friend Omar, who is reader's favorite character, and he's my favorite character too. He is also in all the books. Tess and Omar met when they were in college, so they've been friends for about 20 years. They met their freshman year of college. They were both estranged from their families. Omar is gay, and his family would not accept him, so they basically tossed him aside. Tess went to college with the intention of never going back home to where she had been abused. And so they met on their first day freshman year. They lay down on a football field just talking. And she told him her dream to be a novelist. And that was before she had written her first novel. And fast forward 20 years later, they are each other's best friends. They are family. He teases her mercilessly. Like they have this very fun mocking relationship. And readers absolutely love him. I get more notes about Omar than any other character. I love him too. So he's in all 6 books, and his role gets bigger and bigger. So it's really a story about romantic love, but it's also about chosen family and friendship and just all the different kinds of love we can invite into our lives.
It sounds really good. I want to hear chapter 6.
Thank you.
I'm going to put some of the comments from your reading. Elaine Sapp says a great read. And then we have Virginia says, Virgie says, sounds awesome. And Karen says, thank you for sounds really good. I already love your characters. And I have to say, I love the names you picked, Tess and Jack, because we have a Brittany that was named Tess, and now our second Brittany is named Jack.
Oh, wow. Well, this feels like kismet, like fate.
It really does, doesn't it? I gotta ask you though. I mean, 60 books, not all of them are fiction. I know that, so they don't need character names. But how do you come up with your names for your characters?
It's different for each book. For this book, I can tell you, like when I was thinking of what her name was going to be, I wanted to do some derivative of my name. And it's not because she's me, like she is not me, but she's a novelist. And I just felt like, and we have things in common. And I just felt like this will be a derivative of me. So I thought, Patricia Leavy, Patricia Lee, Trisha Lee, Tesley. That's how I got to Tesley. So it was a derivative of my name. And I can tell you how I got Jack Miller. So it's from the show 24, starring Kiefer Sutherland. And for people who were not fans of that show, that's like one of my favorite shows of all time. I love that show. And his character in that show was named Jack Bauer. And on that show, he is a counterterrorism agent, like, fighting evil and all of that. And he basically sacrifices his entire personal life for his job and for his country. And so I had the idea with this character, what if you took a character like that, but somebody who was willing to sacrifice it all for a woman instead, for a relationship instead?
Oh, okay.
What if they were at this point in their life where they wanted to have a relationship instead? And so I named the character Jack as a nod to the character of Jack Bauer.
Oh, there you go. You should let them know.
I did. Yes, I've been very, very lucky. I've actually spoken with Kiefer Sutherland on the phone. I have texted with him, and he knows all about the series.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was really cool. And actually, like about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, Shooting Stars Above was picked to be in this People magazine article about 10 romances to read, which for me was like a career highlight. I was very, very excited. So I did text him when that happened, because he's like my good luck charm. And I told him, and he was very happy for me. He texted me back right away. He's a very kind person.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So I actually have amazingly had the chance to tell him this.
Oh, I love that. This is totally off topic, but I wanted to pop this question up. It's from earlier that I just found. Lori is asking, I live in New Hampshire. Where in Maine are you? We go to Sebago Lake in the summer and fall. Are you near there?
Yes, Sebago's amazing. When my daughter was younger, she's 25 now, but when she was younger, her camp used to take her on like field trips to Sebago Lake, which is really beautiful. I'm in Kennebunk, which is in southern Maine, so not too far away from that at all. A lot of people know Kennebunkport because the Bushes, former presidents, have a summer house here.
Oh, okay.
So Kennebunkport's sort of on the map because that's where they have their summer house. But anyway, that's where I live. I'm originally from Boston, but my husband and I used to come here like for day trips and then an overnight and then a weekend and then a week. And fast forward, we ended up buying like a little vacation place and we spent one summer here. And after that summer, I was like, can we move to Maine? Like, I just loved it so much. And I mean, the poor man still works in Massachusetts, but he said yes. And so we moved here full time in 2012. So we're Mainers now. We're Mainers.
And he still works in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I mean, he works largely remotely. But he goes in every week, usually just for a day or two in the office in person. So yeah, I commute. I always joke, like I commute across our house and he commutes across multiple states. So it's like slightly different commute.
No kidding. Okay. When you've written 60 books, when you are not writing, what do you enjoy doing to just pull away from the writing, from the books?
I love the arts. I mean, like all the arts. So I go to movies all the time. Like I still go to movie theaters every week. Like sometimes my husband and I are the only people there. Watch a lot of movies. I love to go to art museums. So I go to art museums a lot, art galleries. I love other things too, like theater and dance and ballet and concerts. I mean, those things are not all the time. But basically, I spend a lot of my time, in the arts. I travel a lot. I traveled over 100 days last year.
Oh, wow.
So I travel a lot. This year, I'm traveling like 120 days. So like basically a third of my life, which is kind of crazy. So I love traveling. Like I love seeing different places, experiencing different cultures. So when I do that, I like to like go for a lot of walks, like see whatever there is to see. I do all the tourist stuff, like whatever the tourist stuff is. But my favorite thing to do when I travel is just to find like a little local coffee shop with like local flair in whatever the country is and sit and work on my novels. So like I like to write wherever I go. So yeah, I mean, I write 7 days a week, not all day, every day. Like sometimes like I only get 45 minutes. Sometimes it's all day, but I write every day. So even when I travel, like I'll get up early in a hotel room, or when we go to an art museum, we always sit in the cafe afterwards. My husband will read and I'll write. Like, so our life is very much centered around, well, my love of writing basically, but the arts in general. I mean, we love all
Do you
the
like
arts.
to sit and people watch?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, and it's like, of course you can weave them into a tale when you're a writer. So it's like, and I'm very good at being quiet. I mean, like I said, I grew up very shy. So I'm very good at being a fly on the wall, just sitting quietly in my corner and listening to the things people say. And, sometimes they get woven into something or,
Yeah,
it's been some idea. They have no idea that that's happening, but it happens all the time.
Yeah. And with your traveling, I'm sure it brings a lot of inspiration.
Oh, so much inspiration. I mean, I have some books that are set in all different places that wouldn't exist had I not been to the place. And because I see so much art, like there's usually art in each of my books because I just love the arts and I'm an advocate for the arts. So there's always some nod to the arts in my books, sometimes a full storyline about the arts. But if I go to a museum somewhere and I see some special exhibit and like I learn something because I read the curator notes and I try to learn something, it will end up woven into one of my books. Like it always absolutely gets woven into a book, sometimes in a very direct way, or sometimes it becomes like a metaphor. I often have characters that are like walking through museums. And so the art they're looking at becomes a part of the story. So I'm constantly inspired by what I see.
Short of any ideas, characters, scenery, settings, not at all. One final question. We have to wrap this up. This has been a fascinating chat. I have another hour's worth of questions if I could. But my final question for you, Han, is for a writer that would like to become a published author, what is one piece of advice that you could give them?
I will give you two pieces of advice.
Okay.
The first one, because the first one is for your soul and the second one is practical. Okay, so for your soul, the best advice I was ever given, which I live by, is develop a relationship with your work that is not dependent on anything external, positive or negative. You know, if you let the negative feedback in, it can be very, very damaging to your ability to create. Even with the positive, like while it's lovely to hear nice things, that too can just be like too many cooks in the kitchen. I think it's really important that by the time you publish your work, you know your intention, you've made peace with it, and like what other people think about it is really not any of your business, and that protects your soul. But the other practical piece of advice I would give people is to really learn about the publishing industry, really learn about your different options. There are many options these days. If you are going with any kind of publisher, you're signing a contract with a traditional publisher, an academic publisher, a hybrid publisher, really understand your contracts. I teach webinars about this because so many authors do not properly understand their contracts, and they sign things that might not serve them or they might regret in the future. So I think it's important. Like a lot of creatives want to just focus on the creative, but it's really important to understand that the protecting your creativity. Right. Yeah, it's really important. So, you know, have your own relationship with your work and hold that sacred to yourself. And learn about the business, because you are in a business, and even if it's not natural for you, anybody can learn about it. So you can educate yourself about book contracts and that sort of thing, and try to have fun with it.
There you go. Really good advice. And lastly, the giveaway. You're generously doing a giveaway, and what is that?
We're doing a signed copy of the book. And actually, I'm going to throw in Shooting Stars Above too, because I think it would be better. You can read this, but we're going to do one winner. We'll get both signed books.
Oh, wow. Generous. Okay.
So I think it's more fun to, you know,
start with one and go to two. And I will text you or email you the winner sometime this evening. And then also I do a giveaway too, which is the $5 Amazon gift card. And the way they are entered into that is you go to my author page on Facebook, share this video, tag me when you have shared it, so I know you shared it. And you can do that as many times as you want. And the more times you share it, the more times you are entered. Patricia, this has been a fantastic chat. Thank you.
Tina, thank you so much. I love talking with you.
This has been great. And I will be looking for those other 6 books that will be coming out in the future. Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'll be back in the group this evening with the winner. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.